is Nico Accordino. So in the past, I was the associate director of a nonprofit called Transplanting Traditions Community Farm. And that is a community farm project that works with the refugee community from Burma. And currently I am an occupational therapy student. My background is in agriculture. And so I spent my earlier years focusing on soil fertility and agriculture, and that led me to working with school garden programs. And with those school garden programs, I was in the public school system helping connect K through 5 education with outdoor learning and helping teachers kind of understand the importance of coming outside and connecting with nature and the environment. And that is what then led me to this community farm project. So I was working in therapeutic horticulture for over 10 years. When I was working with the elementary school garden programs, I was working with children K through 12, or no, K through 5. And then when I worked with the Transplanting Traditions Community Farm, the Community Farm Project, I was working with ages, really 0 to on up. I don't know people's ages, but definitely with older adults. And so that farm it was a space for whole families to come together. When I was working with the Transplanting Traditions Community Farm, I found it was really important to take time. So taking time to build relationships with the participants and taking time to learn from them. So it felt really important that, I was coming with knowledge about agriculture in North Carolina and a 4-season climate. And they were coming with this incredible amount of knowledge about, they had spent their entire lives farming, and it was in a 2-season climate, and it was just a very different climate, and they were coming with all of this knowledge and ways that they had grown food. And so it was sort of coming together and learning what their knowledge was, and then sharing the knowledge that I had, and then figuring out what would work here in the United States and the laws that kind of created different regulations if they wanted to sell their produce. So I felt like it was really important to take time to build relationships and to listen to them. The benefits I observed were that the farm space was a home for them. And so when I think about folks leaving their home and then being in this new space, the way that they explained it to me was when they were at the farm that they felt the most at home that they could be in this new place. And so it was putting down roots in this new space and also just having agency to do whatever they wanted in that space. Other benefits were that they had shared with me were coming together as a family, and so it provided a space to come together with many generations. So families would bring their young children and they would just be at the farm, playing at the farm. We also had some older youth programming, and then they would also bring older adults, and the older adults may not be able to participate in some of the farming activities, but the way that they explained why they liked the farm was just being able to be outside and be free to walk around and be in the fresh air. So often they would walk around the periphery of the farm and forage different plants that were familiar to them and just enjoy the space. The greatest reward has been building relationships. I felt like the greatest reward was through taking that time, I was able to build relationships and understand and get to know a community. I go about planning a program by I think it's really important to work on a team and to have a really strong team where people are bringing different experiences and to have a collaborative team. I think I could talk about so many parts of that, but the parts that stick out as important are starting with the community being part of that conversation. So whatever community the project is supporting, the community has needed to ask for that project to exist. So it feels extremely important to have the community be a part of the planning process for the program. Otherwise, I don't really believe programs or projects will persist in the long run. The community needs to have a voice. Important things for planning a program are, and this I think is personal for me, but I think starting small, it felt really important to start with the community input, what was possible in that moment, and to kind of build out from there. And I think that we partnered with a lot of other organizations where they kind of built their program to be really large, including ourselves. We took on some projects that we were unable to kind of manage. And I saw the programs have a lot of momentum in maybe the first year, but the sustainability of the programs, they didn't last long. And I think it was the scope of them was just too large. And so it felt really important to me to start on a smaller and then build out again with that community input and make sure as we were building out that the community had a say in what the growth of that program looked like. We do have goals for the participants, and again, I'll just keep repeating, the participants make their own goals, and then we work with them to help them achieve those goals. So, some of the goals are around building their small farm businesses or building more infrastructure and space to support their farming. And so the participants are a big part of making those goals. So I've been speaking about transplanting traditions, and in choosing activities, because it's more of a wellness-based project, that it's basically, in thinking about therapeutic horticulture, it's a space where people can create their own respite, create a sense of home, and create business opportunities for themselves. I wasn't really planning activities for the participants. So we did provide a lot of farming education around farming in North Carolina. So there were some activities kind of helping bring together the knowledge that participants had with what we were doing in North Carolina. So we did a lot of agricultural workshops, but in the sense of therapeutic horticulture, we didn't have a lot of planned activities. I got started with horticultural therapy when I was working with the school garden program with the public school system. And through that, I would often have teachers who would send me their children that were having challenges in class. And so the children, they would come outside and they would hang out with me and kind of take a chill moment to calm down. And we would spend time in the mint, or we would spend time planting seeds. And they loved it out there. And I realized, through that experience, having the opportunity to connect to outside, it was a calming effect for a lot of kids. Not for everyone, but for a lot of the kids. And so I started to seek out what were ways, was there any structure around a therapeutic aspect to outdoor learning or education? And I came across therapeutic horticulture and horticultural therapy, and that led me to pursue registration in therapeutic horticulture. So I got involved in the North Carolina Botanical Gardens and kind of understood the broader scope. Once I started to take the courses for registration in horticultural therapy, there was the requirement for that 480-hour internship. So at the time I was living in Chapel Hill, and I had heard that the North Carolina Botanical Garden had a horticultural therapy program. So I reached out and asked about the opportunity to complete those internship hours, and if it was possible to do while I was working full-time. They said it was possible, and I spent a little over 2 years at the North Carolina Botanical Gardens while I was still working full-time at Transplanting Traditions. I participated in, helped run some of the programs here at the Botanical Gardens. The network here in North Carolina was a really great, especially earlier on, a great collaboration, because I was able to meet people that were coming to horticultural therapy and therapeutic horticulture from many different expertise and professions. And I really enjoyed particularly meeting different healthcare practitioners who wanted to incorporate more therapeutic horticulture into their practice. And that just really inspired me to think about the scope of how we could integrate therapeutic horticulture into a lot of the different practices, which is what led me to go to school for occupational therapy. I think through the North Carolina network, here and there, I see opportunities for horticultural therapy jobs, just not seeing as many jobs out there and being like, is this sort of worth the pursuit? And I would say that it was worth the pursuit in the sense of the building of the network and the building of just this area of knowledge that I feel like I'm going to add to the work I'm pursuing as I move forward. So I see opportunity, but I think that it's going to take continuing advocacy. So in people creating their own positions, I've seen some really incredible things within the North Carolina network where people have created their own positions and really advocated for themselves as a horticultural therapist on staff, and I've been really inspired by that. And the other opportunity I see is incorporating therapeutic horticulture into other therapeutic professions like social work or occupational therapy or physical therapy, and people just really understanding how to connect goal writing and intervention planning with horticulture, and also just educating the public about it. I would say to get connected with somebody that has knowledge of therapeutic horticulture or horticultural therapy in their area and be able to spend some time with them. I feel like to really understand what it is, you have to spend time and kind of see how it looks in practice. And so connecting with somebody that's nearby. And then I think also wherever they may be, connecting with a local network, because I feel like that really helped me kind of understand the possibilities.